Hello everybody, and welcome to some nice Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. We're just going to be doing a chill stream today. Don't know how long we're going to go for, but I've been in the mood for some more Mario Kart after we played it a couple of weeks ago. And then YouTube started recommending me a bunch of like in-depth reviews and analysis of older Mario Kart games. So I have a bit of a hankering. I think I want to go with a cart this time. I went with a bike last time, and while it served me well, I think I want to mix it up a little bit. Let's see here. Where's the... Do I want to go with Bitty Buggy? Nah, I don't think I do want to go with Bitty Buggy. I think I just kind of want to go with like the standard cart with the GLA wheels. I know it's not optimal, but what? Huh? Okay. Let's try that again, shall we? Hello, Purple Toad, you're so small. I'm spectating. Oh well. That's fine. But I was debating if I wanted to play this game or ZZZ today, but I think with ZZZ, I'm not quite as far into the game as I would like to be to continue streaming it. The game's got a really long tutorial. Basically, like the whole first chapter is a big tutorial, which is fine, but it's a bit limiting. I'm pretty sure everyone's experience is going to be almost essentially the exact same for the first chapter or so of the game. But once I'm past that and I'm into the more you know, like open stuff where I can kind of just go where I want and do what I want, then perhaps I'll come back to it. But I do want to keep playing with that, and I do want to keep streaming it too. I think it'll just be a couple of weeks before I continue doing so. Wow, we really got put into the start of a race, didn't we? That's quite unfortunate. I mean, I guess we can wait it out, but oh boy. Let's see, who's in first? Oh, Dad is in first. Oh, wow. I mean, I guess Kamek is kind of a dad. He's been there since Bowser was a babe. Oh, well. I don't know if it was the same Kamek. There's been a lot of Magikoopas in Bowser's life. It doesn't help that Magikoopa is both a character and a species. The species is called Magikoopa, and then there also is one specific character called Magikoopa, who I think is also Kamek. I think they're the same person. But it's a bit hard to tell what the relationship is to Bowser, I feel. I don't know. Sometimes they're a father figure, sometimes they're just a minion. It's a bit up in the air. Who took over? Oh, I saw you for a second. Where are you? You're in a Goomba outfit. Oh, it's Baby Daisy, of course. But yeah, with ZGG, I'm really enjoying it. I actually did my first 10 pull. Or not, I guess not my first 10 pull. I did my first 10 pull past the... hello, Soren. I did my first 10 pull past the like initial free stuff that they give you. And I got the wolf guy, like Hone, the one that Zosie really wanted. And she was watching as I pulled. And that was really funny, because that's like the only character that she wants. And then she might just stop playing the game. So it was really funny that I got him right away. Let's see here. I think we're approaching the end of the race here. Yeah, lap 2 to 3 already. Who's still in first? Keeps going back and forth. There's second, there's third. Oh, it's still Taze, I guess. All right, well, I guess I'll root for them, since they're in first for now. I got Soldier 11 as your guaranteed S rank. Instantly killed your desire to play more. Oh, man. That's a real shame. I'm sorry to hear that. I think with me, thankfully with gacha games, I'm not too picky about the characters that I get. It's more so the draw of the gameplay. It's probably why I played Fire Emblem Heroes for like 4 years. But for now, ZZZ's gameplay has me hook, line, and sinkered. So until I get bored of that, I think I'll stick with it. But I do really like the way that the Shark Girl played. Oh, this is meant that her gameplay isn't great. Oh man, well that's not good. I think for now I'm okay with the basic characters, and her design is like an R rarity Nikki. Is it Nikki? Nikkei? Mike? How do you pronounce that game? But yeah, you're right. Soldier 11's design, it kind of feels like it might be like a base design out of like, oh, Nikkei, okay. It seems like it might have been like a concept art between, oh, what's the girl in the green, who's like one of the 3 main characters. Soldier 11 feels like a beta design for her that they just liked enough to put into the game. Anby, that's the one. Go to Nekomiya because her counter/parry focus kit was great. Nekomiya's been a lot of fun in the story chapters that I played. I really like her gameplay. I was kind of hoping I was going to unlock her automatically, but I guess I'll have to rely on luck for that. I do really like the way that the Shark Girl plays, so I'm somewhat hoping to get her. But like I said, I'm really not too picky in terms of what characters I get. I do like the way that well, not so much. I've forgotten all of the names. The girl with the pink hair. I don't really like her gameplay all that much, but everyone else I like. Billy's I like, Anby I like, and I keep switching out who I'm playing as. But I'm doing most of the story missions, so I'm kind of stuck with Nicole, and Billy, and Anby for now. But that's all right. I'm liking it so far. Perhaps when I get to chapter 2, my opinions might change since I know the story chapters involve different characters. But for now, I'm liking it. She's pretty cool in your opinion. Her suction ability is nice for smaller mobs. I think I'm just not a big fan of ranged characters in that game. Billy's a bit different because he shoots really quickly, but I feel like Nicole, like you go up close and then her attacks feel kind of pitiful, and then her like secondary ability is really good when you're far away. But I don't know, maybe I just don't like the near to far gameplay. I don't know what it is about her. Maybe her gameplay will grow on me as I keep playing, but I think for now she's my least favorite out of the 3. I think it's a cool game, but it just seems too involved for you to add a gacha that you already play. Yeah, that's true. ZZZ really, it doesn't feel like it is a gacha game. Obviously it is, but it really feels like it's like a complete single-player experience that just so happens to have gacha elements put onto it, which, I mean, obviously it's a Hoyoverse game, so of course they were going to do that, but I'm approaching ZZZ not how I would approach like a gacha game, but I'm approaching it more like I would approach like an RPG, where my goal is to like immerse myself in the world and gameplay and try to like beat the game, because there's an end to the story for now. So I think maybe after I do that and I get to the end of like the story content, maybe I'll stop playing until they add more, because that's kind of what my experience with gacha games in the past has been. But it definitely is a lot more, yeah, like you said, a lot more involved than the typical gacha game. Gacha are like 10% story. That's very true. ZZZ is like 90% story, or at least 90% implied story. I know that the story is not anything too crazy, but there is stuff to look at and read along to, so that's nice. Yeah, and honestly, every time I talk about gachas, I'm just constantly reminded about Fire Emblem Heroes, because that is why I stuck with that game for so long, is because I was invested in the story that they were setting up, and then they just consistently dropped the ball. They would have some kind of interesting thing that was going on, and then they'd be like, okay, well, actually, we're only allowed to have 10 chapters per book, so sorry for the 6 chapters of build-up. You're now going to beat the main antagonist and complete all of the story in 1 hour, and then there you go. Hello, Ash. Most of the actual gameplay is just farming for better materials, equipment, and the idea of it taking 30 minutes to an hour a day with no autoplay is oof. That's very true, which is why I'm glad that they have the story mode where it automatically like levels up your character in order to beat the mission, because like I said, if I can just do that and then beat the game, I'm probably just gonna do that, and then whenever they introduce new story content, I'll just come back to it every now and then. I am a bit worried that it is going to get to the point where even with the, like, story mode of the game, I'm still going to have to grind up for materials. I'm not really looking forward to that, and I was worried about that, which is why I put off playing it for, like, a week or so. But after seeing Zosie play it for longer than I have, I was convinced to pick it up. But I'm not like, fully committed to it or anything. I'm fully prepared to drop it if I ever decide that it's no longer worth my time. Speaking of gacha, you got the Snake Lady from Star Rail. Cool. I don't know who you're talking about. I know nothing about any other Hoyoverse game. But I'm glad that you got a character. That's nice. But with Fire Emblem Heroes specifically, I think it was around the this story chapter where they started to introduce like the realm of the dead stuff. If anybody has any experience with that game, I feel like that's where my problems started to arise, where they were setting up this story for like 6 or 7 chapters through storybook 1. And then yeah, that's another big reason why I stopped playing. And then they kind of just like stopped. They didn't even conclude. They just stopped the story from storybook 1 and 2. And even 2 was like, it was kind of related. That's like all the Snow Kingdom stuff. But even then, the end of the first storybook kind of left off at the start of the second one. But then when they got to the death stuff, like, it was completely unrelated to the things that have happened before. Like, with the exception of maybe like 1 or 2 events, they just stopped telling the story that they were telling and completely pivoted to something else. And then every other story book after that continued to just pivot in a completely different direction. And then it's like, well, it's not worth getting invested in any of the characters of the story because, you know, by the next 4 months or whatever, none of these characters are ever going to be mentioned again. And I'm kind of worried that something like that will happen with ZZZ if I get to like the later story chapters where whatever they're building up is concluded by the end of the very short chapter, and then that's kind of it. Happens to most gacha. I kind of figured that was the case. I mean, it makes sense with them having to like constantly introduce new characters in order to get people to come back, but I just wish that they would have like the foresight to tell a complete story and then move on. Instead of just like, yeah, exactly. Instead of just bouncing back and forth between side stories and main stories. I mean, in something like an actual RPG, that doesn't really matter because you can choose to do the side quests whenever you want, and you can just simply not do them. But in something where the content that's given to you is the exact same as everyone else, and like you get the content, just and that's what you have with no options. I think that holds back the storytelling a lot. I don't know. I think that's why I like when gacha games split up the main story and the side stories. And Fire Emblem Heroes did do that, where they would have sub-stories and stuff. But even then, with their main story, it just... they couldn't finish anything. I just want a finished story before a game tells me that it's not important anymore, you know? But I'll probably stream some more ZZZ next week if I can get past the first chapter. Which, I don't know, I'm going to be pretty busy this week, but hopefully I'll be able to. Sounds like you should play games that aren't gacha. I don't really play any gacha games anymore. I'll come back to one like every now and then. Aw, Shy Guys. Every now and then. Like I dropped Fire Emblem Heroes. I never got into like Genshin or Honkai. I played a little bit of Dragon Ball Legends, but it fell into the same problem of like the story is not the focus, and they're trying to tell an interesting story, but the medium of gameplay is just not a good way to do that. So ZZZ is me kind of like testing the waters to come back to a gacha game of some kind. And if I like it, then that's fantastic. But if I don't, it's not really, you know, it's not a big deal if I don't continue with it. Your sister's boyfriend plays DBZ Dokkan Battle. The amount of times that like 3 of my friends have told me to start playing Dokkan Battle is insane. The people who play Dokkan Battle are like completely invested and committed in that game no matter what happens. Which is funny, because the people who spend the most amount of money on Dokkan are also the people who complain every time Goku gets like another form for like the 30th time. That game's really funny to me, because everything I've seen from it looks like it wouldn't be a good game. But then everybody I know who plays it is like, no, this game is fantastic, you should play it. And I don't understand? Maybe I'm scared to understand. Maybe I'm worried that I'll actually like it and end up spending as much money as they do. Oh, that green shell almost took me out. Can't be as worse as Dragon Ball Heroes for stupid forms. Don't even get me started on Dragon Ball Heroes. That game should have stayed as an arcade-only game. It coming to home console was probably the worst thing that could have happened to it. And the thing is, I don't even mind them giving new forms to characters. It's just the way that they go about it. Like, I don't care if Raditz gets Super Saiyan forms. That's fine. Whatever. That's cool fanfiction stuff. But why did they give Raditz only Super Saiyan 3? And then there's like 6 Super Saiyan 3 Raditzes in the games. There's more forms there. You don't have to just give them one and exclusively use that. Tried watching one episode of the anime adaptation. Well, funnily enough, it is in no way an anime adaptation. It is purely a series of 7-minute long commercials, and they're garbage. There's like a maybe 4, and that's just because they look nice, because they were animated by the people who did the Broly movie. But you're right, it's absolutely garbage. If your quality of animation is worse than the average cutscene, you're probably doing something wrong. like the fact that Xenoverse 2 cutscenes look better than that, and Xenoverse 2 is like the low bar, low budget game of the pack, is quite astounding, honestly. What do we got here? Any other Canadians? I'm the only one! Oh, the other Canadian left. Dad is still here, though. That's nice. Dad with the Mario me. Oh, somebody's internet. There we go. You want to play the Xenoverse games, but it's so hard to find them for a good price. I got Xenoverse 2 for $10 on sale, and I would not have spent that much money on it. It's one of those things, again, it falls into the same problems of it wants to do something that's really interesting, and the style of game that it is just doesn't let it do any of those interesting things. Like, it wants to tell a good story, and it wants to have, like, fun and interesting missions, but the way that the game plays, it's like a bad anime arena fighter, except then you also throw on the, like, unnecessary grindy and multiplayer elements of it also being kind of a MOBA, and it means that, like, there's content in that game that you'll have accessible to you immediately, but you won't be able to do it for, like, 400 levels. And, like, you have to build your character in a really specific way in order to accomplish, like, the late game stuff or any of the event stuff. But then it's telling a story as if it's like a purely single-player game that you can play at your own pace. And there's a big disconnect between how it wants you to play and how realistically you're going to be able to play that game. I think the first one wasn't as bad with its story mode, but that game was also a horribly unbalanced mess, and you can literally just dodge for the entire duration of a fight and then win it. But because Xenoverse 2 actually has a competent battle system, it kind of means that the single-player aspect of it suffers a lot. You haven't enjoyed a Dragon Ball game since Tenkaichi Budokai 3? You're not alone. Oh my god, I'm very excited for Sparking Zero because I realize I don't care about any multiplayer aspect of a Dragon Ball game. I don't want games to be balanced, and I don't want to have to, like, play a really specific meta gameplay style on my Dragon Ball games, which is a problem I had with Fighters. I think Fighters is a fantastic game, and I had a lot of fun with it. But being a fighting game, it has a meta, it has character tiers. You are at a disadvantage if you choose to play certain characters over others. But with a game like the Tenkaichi series or Sparking Zero, that doesn't matter, because that's not the appeal of the game. The appeal of the game is that it's a big old fan fiction simulator, and you can make your action figures crash into each other. That's what I like doing. I think, honestly, the harder a Dragon Ball game tries, the worse it ends up being. I think the more they play it safe, the more fun it is. Because Fighters is... I wouldn't say that they weren't trying with the game at all. Obviously, there's a ton of effort put into it. But it's a Guilty Gear game. Like, it has different mechanics, but it's a Guilty Gear game. It's what Arc Sys knows. They did not have to, like, branch outside of their comfort zone in order to make Fighters. But even then, maybe they didn't try with the development of Dragon Ball The Breakers, but they tried with the concept of it. Like they tried to think outside of the box, and they tried to give people something new. But I think that's the problem with Dragon Ball games, is that whenever they do try to do something new is when they fumble. I don't know, because I'm thinking of, like, Kakarot, and Kakarot's a good game because it's just, like, a solid action RPG, like, regardless of it being a Dragon Ball game. But then there are so many times where, like, they try to have this sort of, like, hook to their game, like, especially with Xenoverse having that online aspect that literally nobody cares about. Like, that's what drags the game down, is the, like, unique aspect of the game. I think I would rather have, like, like generic done really, really good for Dragon Ball, instead of something maybe a bit outside of the box done really, really bad. I feel like rather than an interesting concept, they saw Dead by Daylight and thought, how can we smush this game into our Dragon Ball universe? Yeah, that's another thing. But I feel like that's a problem that plagued... I was actually watching a video right before stream, actually, about the state of anime games in general, and how anime games have never been innovators in gameplay styles, because anime games are basically the equivalent of like licensed Western games, like the SpongeBob games. Some of the SpongeBob games are good, but none of them are unique. They all piggyback off of other gameplay styles, and anime games do the exact same thing, which is why you get a bunch of slop. I think DBZ would work well as a Dynasty Warrior, or maybe like an RTS with heroes. I think so too. I think what we really need is a turn-based Dragon Ball RPG again. There was a bunch of them during the Game Boy and DS era, and a lot of them were really good. But because Bandai Namco has like exclusive licensing rights to the Dragon Ball games, and Bandai Namco is actually an absolute dogshit garbage game company that nobody should support, but I mean, we have to because they're the only ones making anime games. It's quite unfortunate. But Bandai Namco specifically is notorious for not doing anything interesting ever, and just relying on like hiring contractors to make the games that they don't care about. Because Bandai Namco can make good games, but only if it's done in-house. Because otherwise they're gonna contract like a studio that... What was that physics? They're gonna contact a studio that has like no experience, and then give them like 8 to 12 months to make a game, and then call it a day and ship it. Which is not a very good way to make video games. Especially not ones that have like $1 million licenses attached to them. Hear that Compile Heart was pretty good? I haven't heard of that one. Every now and then Bandai will put out a good game, but I mean, if you look at the list of all of the games that they publish, it's astounding the difference in quality between their in-house titles and their like licensed titles. It's really crazy. They made the Neptunia games, the Azure Lane console game. Oh yeah. Hyperdimension Neptunia has been going on for a while. I'm sure those games are fantastic by now. Senran Kagura too. Well, that's the thing, right? Like those are like the big heavy hitters for Bandai. When they care about a franchise that makes them money, they'll put as much effort into it as they need to. But if it's just something where, you know, it's gonna make them a quick buck, they were probably paid to, like, you know, make me a Hunter x Hunter game. You know, chances are that game's probably not going to be very good because Bandai Namco does not care about it, so they're not going to put effort into it. And you would think that Dragon Ball, because it makes them so much money, would be a series that they put a lot of effort into, but historically, that just hasn't really been the case. I stole that from that Shy Guy. That Shy Guy should have won. Do I feel remorseful? No, but he should have won. Yeah, maybe it was. I was holding on to it for a reason, though. Sorry, D-. Oh, they're probably playing with their child. I'm so sorry. I just murdered someone's father. That was a lot of blue shells. Hey, it's a very viable strategy in this game to stay at a lower position to overtake them later. Just ask the top players of this game. Staying around 7th and 8th for the entire race. I believe in you, Jose. Good luck. I've had an idea. I've had many ideas for Dragon Ball games that they can make. To the point where I even prototyped one out. I didn't do anything with it, obviously, because I don't have the licensing rights to that, and I would probably get cease and desisted if I posted anything about it. But I really think that they could get away with doing other genres. Not every Dragon Ball game has to be like an arena game or like whatever Heroes is. I don't even know how you would describe Heroes. It's not a turn-based RPG, but it is turn-based. Can't even make a fan-made non-profit one. It depends on the franchise. Some franchises are really, really, like, not cool with you making fan games. Like, Pokemon is a big one. If you ever want to make a Pokemon game, you have to, like, hope that that shit never gets popular, otherwise it's going to be taken down immediately. I don't know if Dragon Ball specifically is one, but I know that Bandai is not cool with people making fan games. Maybe that's just with their in-house ones, like their actual first-party IPs. But that's just not really something I want to risk. Whoa. D-, please. I know it's revenge, but please. It's just one of those things where, like, even if I wanted to prototype it out, like, it would never be what I wanted it to be, you know? I've thought about it. I've thought about it for years at this point, ever since I, like, probably, like my second year of school. Because they're kind of just, I feel like that, oh no, my drift bonked me off the edge. I feel like they're kind of just sitting on money with Dragon Ball. Like, Sparking Zero is a fantastic thing that's happening. I'm really glad that they're bringing back the Tenkaichi series. But I feel like it wasn't until, like, Fighters and Kakarot where we started to see, like, actual quality games that branched out from the Arena Fighter genre. And I think there's just so many, and not even just Dragon Ball, there's just so many different kinds of games that different anime could fulfill, and they just kind of don't. Kakarot's not terrible, it's just disappointing. It could have been so much better. It's a fun game if you just, like, turn your brain off and don't really care about what's happening. It's a decent action beat-em-up with RPG elements. It's nothing, like, groundbreaking. Like, it's not a Final Fantasy, it's not a Devil May Cry, but it feels kind of a little bit like both of them. Maybe less so Devil May Cry, maybe more so like a Tenkaichi game. But it's alright. But even if it's not a fantastic game, I think it's still, like, a good direction, at least, or at least a good sign of what they could be doing. Because for a while, like, every Dragon Ball game was just a gacha game, or it was something that was kind of like the old Budokai games, but just worse. And I feel like we were stuck in that rut for a really long time, and only now are we starting to see them actually, like, try with their games again. So I'm really hoping. I know that Bandai Namco said that they were cutting down the amount of games they were publishing and focusing more on quality control, so that's a good sign. You speak for everyone when you ask where the hell is Dragon Ball Kart. Unironically, I think that would go pretty hard. I mean, they kind of had that in Kakarot. There was a racing mini game. It was bad, but they kind of had that. I'd be down for a full version of that. Even if it was just them flying around instead of in carts, that'd be fun too. But even outside of Dragon Ball, like, I know that like Hunter x Hunter is getting an Arxis-styled fighting game, and you know that Jujutsu Kaisen got an absolutely dogshit arena fighter. But it's like, why are you giving communication errors occurred? Who left the game because they didn't win? Oh, come on. But why are they giving them those kinds of games? Like Jujutsu Kaisen is like very story heavy. Like that show is like it's known for its good story. Like you'd feel like, you know, maybe an action beat 'em up or an RPG or something would be better fitting for that kind of game. That the Naruto games went pretty hard. Some of them do. I know the older ones. A lot of people like. I don't remember what. I think it's Ultimate Ninja Storm. Where some of them have like exploration story modes, and those are the ones that they like. But even that was also mentioned in the video that I watched earlier, where it's like every time they put out a new Ultimate Ninja Storm, it's like one step forward and like 2 or 3 steps back. They'll like reintroduce a mechanic from an old game, and then they'll like take away 2 or 3 mechanics from before. So even that series is like, it's having its issues. What is going on? Why am I spectating? Oh, because I'm reconnecting, that's right. Oh man, I don't want to have to watch another race again. Ugh. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like maybe the reason why we're having all of these problems with arena fighter games is because of the live service model of video games, because arena fighters are ripe for giving you a bunch of DLC. Look at Dragon Ball Xenoverse, where they'll just charge you like $6 for 2 or 3 characters, and they'll just do that like 4 or 5 times a year. And while I'm sure it's not making them as much money as like a game with microtransactions would make them, it's still a form of getting money for, you know, a prolonged period of time. And I feel like the fact that companies can do that might be dissuading them from just putting out fully finished standalone products. I think the original Sword Art Online game was pretty good and then went downhill super fast. That's unfortunate. I feel like that would be like literally the perfect game for a video game adaptation. Like that's kind of its thing, is it not? But I agree with that Sonic meme. I want worse games made by people who are paid more to do less with shittier graphics for a lower price. First one was called Hollow Fragment, and the premise was that if the game didn't end at floor 75 like the anime did, and you have to go through the last 25 floors. Oh, I see. That's interesting. I like when games remix the premise of an anime. But even, like, more than Jujutsu Kaisen or Hunter x Hunter, good premise, nice mix of bosses, and the combat system is pretty clean. Well, that's good. Even more so than, like, the really popular anime. There are just way too many anime games in general. Like, yeah, okay, specifically harping on Jujutsu Kaisen a little bit more. They made a game for an anime that had 1.5 seasons. Like I feel like that's a bit too early, especially when it's like an ongoing story. I have tried the My Hero the Arena Fighter one, or are you talking about the Battle Royale one? Because I've tried the Arena Fighter one, and that one was Garbo. And the Battle Royale one, I have seen terrible things about that game, and by looking at the gameplay, it's kind of a shame because that game looks pretty nice. And I understand the concept, but why would they make a Battle Royale for My Hero Academia? It's a story-heavy anime that involves combat. Make a beat-em-up. But even the Spy Family game that came out, absolutely dogshit monetization, and the gameplay is horrifically unbalanced and unfun. I'm not surprised. I've heard fantastic things about the Spy Family game that came out. So they got away with that one, right? Like maybe that's an exception to the rule. But even then, the anime is based off of just the first season of Spy Family. There's a Spy Family game that looks like Persona. I don't know what the actual gameplay of it is, but it looks like a Persona game. Even down to like the way that the UI looks. It's just a Persona game. But again, maybe that one's an exception to the rule because I have heard good things about it, but why are we making games about seasonal anime? Like, shouldn't you wait until the story is done, or at least until you have like a significant portion of the story? Like even the early Naruto games, like they at least waited until like after Orochimaru, and even then a lot of them came out when like Shippuden was over the horizon. So there was a lot of like content that they could have for their games. But instead, so many anime games are just like, how little content can we put into this game before we can release it? And I feel like that's a thing with like, you know, Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Clash or like the My Hero Academia Arena Fighters. It's like, maybe you have like, you know, 20 characters to play as, but in terms of actual substance to your game, you're not really working with much. Bleach games are the worst for that. Well, Bleach is an anime that has barely continued past its introduction, so I'm not super surprised. You had to make up new characters and new moves to keep things interesting. That's honestly a bit sad. It's also unfortunate because I feel like a lot of these games, because the license is only for the anime, there may very well be a lot of things that they could do from like stuff that's in the manga, but because the license is usually with the animation company and not with like the actual rights holder to the franchise, they can't use any of that interesting stuff. Like, I'm sure like that Spy Family game is fine, but like if it's only based off of the first season and a half, like there's like years and years of manga. You could just take longer and make a bigger, more fleshed out game, you know? You don't have to make a game as soon as the first season of an anime airs. I know that they're trying to make money, but I mean, if a game barely sells and then reviews poorly, was it even worth it in the first place? Well, I don't understand why they wouldn't just like take the time and put more effort into it in order to get more money out of it. I don't know. I feel like it's just a it's just a thing where the same thing happened with American licensed games, but then we kind of stopped making them. Like, American licensed games are usually put out for, like, really, really low prices and made by companies that, like, can make games for almost free. But when you have something like Bandai Namco, where they keep hiring people for, like subcontractors, it's still not that much less money going into it. The more effort you put into it, the more you rely on it to succeed financially, but I feel like they already rely on it to succeed financially. Like, usually the way that it works is that when it comes to these franchise games, the studio that puts it out is going to avoid spending any kind of money on marketing, and then they're going to use the entirety of their budgets, like, you know, sparingly as possible. So they'll probably only end up, like, making back the amount of money that they put into it. So none of these like licensed games are even, like, profitable. But what's the point then? If you're not making a profit on the game, then why are you making it in the first place? Like, obviously it's, to get exposure, and that way, you know, we can tide ourselves over in order to, or keep the rights to the IP, like stuff with that, but then no one's gonna want to buy it. Like, if you have the rights to an IP, well, you never do anything interesting with it, what's the point of having the IP? And I know it's very common sense for me to be asking these things because I'm not a multi-million-dollar corporation. But it's just kind of a sad state that licensed games are in right now. Even if games used to be bad, like I know that there's like a lot of bad Nickelodeon games out there, but at least some of them are interesting. Like, they did weird things. But we're just in, like, an age of boring. Not only are like licensed anime games bad, but they're also lame and boring. Battle for Bikini Bottom was robbed of Game of the Year. Hey, I'm not talking about Battle of Bikini Bottom. I'm talking about, like, all the, like, handheld, weird point-and-click adventure stuff. I would never threaten the GOAT. Don't worry. Also, those Nickelodeon crossover games, like Globs of Slime and the ones before that, like, they were not good games, but at least it was interesting having, like, a beat 'em up where your favorite characters are interacting with each other. But that's something interesting. Just having an arena fighter where, like, the characters barely interact. You're literally just given, like, audio-less slideshows of shots from the anime, and there's no personality behind anything because they all reuse voice lines, and, like, there's no care put into the interactions between characters. That's just boring. That's not fun. That doesn't even have the appeal of smashing action figures together. That's just like looking at two PNGs and then violently shaking them. Oh, thank you for the mushroom. And hopefully we're getting to a better place. Bandai Namco focusing on quality control does give me hope, because that means at the very least we're going to be getting less bad games. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be getting more good games, but if they can just reduce the amount of slop, I think that would be a good first step to fixing these things. Oh, come on. No! I tried. Oh, it's okay, they drifted into a wall. That being said, I am incredibly excited for Sparking Zero. And mostly that's because it's the same people who worked on Budokai Tenkaichi 3. Which is good, because Bandai could have hired anyone to make that game. They could have hired the people who made Cursed Clash to make that game. But they didn't. They went through the effort, they got the people from Cryware back, and now it seems like they're putting out an actually worthwhile product, which I'm happy about. I remember there was a I don't remember what it was called. It was a card game kind of for Dragon Ball on the DS, and it had like an overworld function where you could like go to different missions and take on like like minor enemies, and then there'd be boss fights, and your point was to like build your deck of cards by leveling up, and then during battle you would like play certain attack cards in order to fight your enemies. I don't remember what that one was called, but I remember playing it as a kid, and that's something that I always found really interesting. I think I'll have to look into that one again, because I don't know. Dragon Ball Chain of Memories. I mean, yeah, kind of. It kind of was like Proto Chain of Memories. What was that game called? Let's see. The DBZ DS card game. Oh, it's got an unpronounceable name? Okay, I'm not surprised. It's called Dragon Ball Z Harukanaru Densetsu. And it reviewed really good, actually. Yeah, I remember that one. I'm gonna have to give this game a shot again. Interesting. A one-off Dragon Ball Z card game stream, perhaps? But I want more interesting stuff like that. I want wacky games that actually try to do something and have effort behind them. It's like, I know I said the opposite, but it's like a speedometer, you know? On one side, you have really wacky things, and on the other side, you have really safe things that are made really well. I just don't want anything in the middle. Dragon Ball The Breakers was wacky, but had no effort. And Xenoverse is safe, but is boring. Even stuff like Digimon. Digimon's games are all over the place too. And surprise, surprise, also owned by Bandai Namco. I have a friend who's really into Digimon, or at least into the Cyberverse? Is that what they're called? Or World? Digimon World Cyber Sleuth. Yeah, so the Digimon World games. He's really into those ones. And those seem like a fitting thing for Digimon. But I've heard that a lot of the like earlier Digimon games kind of struggled to gain their footing. You've like most of the Digimon games so far. Glad to hear that, because I've heard really mixed things on it. And it seems like depending on who you talk to, their opinions on the Digimon games are gonna be like super varied. Yeah, World's a good series. I played a couple World games on the DS when I was younger. I had a multi-cart with a bunch of free games on it, but don't tell your local government, because that's not my local government and they won't care about me. But there's other ones too, like there's the World Championship games, there's like, you know, I mean, I'd argue to even call them games, but there's like the original Tamagotchi stuff. It feels like when it comes to, man, I'm really harping on Bandai Namco this stream, but there's a good reason for it. I feel like it's just they don't know what they're doing, and they're good at making games, but they don't know what games to make. I feel it really feels like they just kind of care about throwing stuff out there, and that's it. Because I know that they can make good stuff. I know that they can. They do make good stuff consistently. It's just there's so much bad stuff. It is nice to see that other companies are starting to get anime licenses though. Like I know that the Hunter x Hunter Nen Battle is not being done by Bandai, which is a good sign. And also, you know, Arc System Dragon Ball Fighters. That's also another good sign. But I just hope that some of those licenses should hopefully be rented away from Bandai and distributed to people who are actually going to do something with them. Even older anime. Like, when's the last time you saw a Sailor Moon game? Sailor Moon is still very popular. I know that even younger people are getting into Sailor Moon these days. But I haven't seen any games from them. I haven't seen anything from them recently. Curious, what was the last Sailor Moon game? My sister was really into Sailor Moon. I never got into it, but I've heard good things. Sailor Moon games. Let's see. What was the last one that came out? This page is really zoomed in. The last one was... No, that's Monster Hunter crossover with Sailor Moon. Monster Strike, no, that's all crossovers. Okay. The last one was, oh, of course, a 2016 mobile gacha game. Why am I not surprised? The last actual Sailor Moon game was released on March 31st, 2000. That's almost 30 years ago. That they're just not doing anything with it. And I know Zosi and I were talking about it the other day. There's a Madoka Magica game coming out, and she was really excited. And it's just another mobile gacha game with like no substance to it, and it's just such a shame. Why are we not doing interesting things with license? Why are we not making real games anymore? There's some fan-made Sailor Moon games. If you know, you know. What kind of fan-made games? Are you talking about the ones that children shouldn't be seeing? Or are you talking about like actual like good games? There was the Ni no Kuni game that came out. I know that came out quite a while ago, but the former. Ooh, I see. I do know that. The Ni no Kuni game that came out, my former roommate played it, and while he had problems with it, it was like a complete standalone game that you know, you had the whole story of Ni no Kuni and was like a well put together, well thought out, interesting to play video game. But I mean, that's like one out of like 1,000 that have come out. I guess Yokai Watch was another series that, while it was unfortunate that it never really caught on, that was an anime game. It was based off of an anime. Yeah, it sucks how profitable gacha games are. People just really like spending money on PNGs, I guess. I think there just needs to be a different Bandai Namco. There needs to be like a game studio dedicated to making good licensed games, and everyone can just give their licensing to them, and they'll have a game that makes a profit. Anything extra is pure profit. Yeah, exactly. You do just need a couple of whales. I mean, that's why Genshin popped off as hard as it did. Whoops. It was a gacha game that appealed to a more general demographic, which invited way more people to spend their money. Sure, it was done before, but I feel like that was like a really big turning point for gacha games, where it went from, oh yeah, of course that's a really good way of making money, to everybody needs to do this immediately, or you're just wasting funds. Oh. Come on, Johnny. Mess up somehow. No! Johnny didn't suddenly collapse. I know, I was hoping for like spontaneous combustion, a heart attack on the road, perhaps. You know, he has a dry bones. I feel like his lack of organs might be causing some negative benefits to his health. Negative benefits? That's not a thing. Mom turned off the internet, time for dinner. I can only... Jet Set Radio. Hello. I'm not really... Like, I don't mind Toad Harbor and Cloud Top Cruise. I think I'm just okay with random. I'm curious if this Jet Set Radio me is actually... if that's who they are, or if it's just a funky little coincidence. What's it gonna be? I feel like it's gonna be Boo Lake, which is unfortunate because that's the one that I was hoping it wouldn't be. Okay, good. Oh, it's his too. At least that's a rather benign me compared to some I've seen. Yeah, every once in a... I see. That's very related to what I was about to say. Every once in a while, you'll see a penis. You know, they're around on the Mario Kart Online Mii Maker Miis. There's also some unfortunate stereotypes that people like to make with their Miis. I never understood people who do that, because I feel like that's not really... I don't know how many little kids are like into that kind of style of humor anymore, so I feel like if you ever see people with that, like, they're probably a fully grown adult, and that's just kind of sad. I think the people who fall into that demographic are probably not people who should be interacting with children on Mario Kart anyways, so I'm very glad that this game doesn't have a voice chat or anything. Uh-oh. I'll give PP Lord a pass, though. He's just being a bit silly, a bit goofy. Oh my god. That reminds me, isn't there a Jet Set Radio remake coming out sometime soon? Like, Sega announced a bunch of remakes, like Crazy Taxi, Golden Axe, Jet Set Radio. I thought that was really cool. I'm not particularly into any of those games, but it's nice to just, like, just give a bunch of older games new entries. Haven't played any of them. I haven't either. I've always had a general interest, especially when Bomber Cyberpunk came out. That game looks like it would be fun. But I think I kind of missed the whole like Tony Hawk Pro Skater era of video games. I think that was like just slightly before my time. So I never really got into the whole like trick-based skating or sports games. But I am interested in Jet Set Radio because it has that story aspect to it. I'm sure I could be convinced to play it. Pauline, where did you come from? Uh-oh. You love Pro Skater 3? I had a neighbor who had the Pro Skater games, but he had them on the Wii, so we had the... Or no, he had them on the PlayStation 2, but he had the skateboard controller that came with it, and he would exclusively play them with that skateboard controller. And it looked like the most unfun thing I had ever seen another human being do. I did have the demo for Tony Hawk Pro Skater on the PS1. I think that was the first one, wasn't it? I had it on a demo disc alongside Spyro 3 and a couple of other things, but never ended up getting too into it because my PS1 ended up breaking, and it would only play games turned upside down. But I didn't know that, and I just ended up selling it. Oh no, I didn't sell it. I still have it actually. It's in my storage area. 1 and 2 were on PS1, if you recall correctly. I think that's the case. That sounds right. I sold a bunch of the PS1 games. That's what I did. I still have the console though, but they weren't none of them were the important games. They were mostly I don't want to say shovelware, but they were definitely the C or D team games that came out during that era. Like Taifu, or that one game where you're like the rabbit that jumps on stuff. I forgot about that. I forgot that you could play as Yoda and Darth Maul and Tony Hawk. You could play as Spider-Man in one of them too, couldn't you? Was that 2 that you could play as Spider-Man? 2, yeah, that was a really nice touch. Back when you can actually do stuff with other companies' IPs without having to pay a bajillion more billion dollars. I do miss the simple era of PS1 games. It didn't go anywhere. I have an emulator on my computer, but I miss it still. When games had fun unlockables instead of DLC. Yeah. Imagine a game coming complete on the disc that you buy from the store instead of needing a day one 30 gigabyte update. Impossible. Impossible to imagine. Still no Canadians. At least we're going to Canada. I mean, it's the other side of the country, but at least we're going there. There we go. I wonder whose internet it was. Whose internet is making us start later? Oh, we're getting to that point where my Elgato has desynced to my own audio. It's fine. I'll fix that after this race. I would like to go to Vancouver. Unfortunately, it's very expensive. For whoever's not Canadian, which is literally 100% of my audience, except for my one friend, Vancouver is kind of like the New York of Canada. It's incredibly expensive to live in, and if you do want to live there, you basically have to get a really high-paying job. But in terms of visiting it, it seems like a really fun place to go to, and there's a lot of interesting stuff around there. But it is right above California, so take that how you will. I guess it's above Washington, which is also above California. It's the whole coast. The whole coast is interesting. I don't know if it's a positive or negative thing, but I feel like just generally the West Coast is very different from the rest of North America. It's good if you like sports, though, and there's a reason why there's an arena in this racetrack. Vancouver is a big sports place. You moved to the North America servers on Final Fantasy XIV, and while you're glad to be free of French players, you found a new threat: Californians. Oh no, not the Californians. It's so funny that the millennial stereotype is just Californians. Like I don't know how we like conflated those two, but your typical millennial is just a normal person, and the stereotypes are just Californians. Whoa. I don't even have anything against them. I just think, you know, there's just honestly the world's kind of against them, and it's hard to not feel the same way. I like making fun of Californians in the same way I like making fun of the French, which is that it's all in jest, but count your days, you know? Count your days. The only people I unironically make fun of are Quebecois, and you know what you did. Ooh, it's been a while since I've done a good old Rainbow Road. French, Canadian, fake French? Exactly. They're not French, and they're not Canadian. They're neither. I can't even tell them to pick a lane because they don't fit into either one. They don't like France, and they don't want to be part of Canada. I mean, what do you want me to do with that? I've always been of the mindset that it would be really, really funny if Quebec ever actually did become their own country, because not only would they be entirely surrounded by Canada and America, but also Quebec does not have the economy, so I feel like they would just become their own country, and then like 2 or 3 months later, they'd just like the French, wave a white flag and come running back, begging to be let back into the Canadian government. That being said, another place I really want to visit. Quebec is a fantastic place to go for a vacation. I don't know if I would want to live there, but visit for sure. You have something similar in the UK. Scotland is desperate to leave the Union, but it would collapse within months if they did. Yeah, and there's a couple places like that. Is Scotland recognized as its own country? I've never been able to actually figure that one out. Because I feel like whenever referring to it, it sounds like it's its own country. It is? Okay, I figured that it was. It's not a Northern Ireland situation. But there's a couple of them like that. Like there's Scotland, there's Ireland, there's Wales. I know that they're all different countries, but because they're all a part of the like... Yeah, exactly. Because they don't have full political autonomy and they're all a part of like the same constitution, it's like... I mean... You know, it's kind of like how I view Canadian provinces. We all technically aren't fully autonomous, but we can make our own laws and stuff. It just kind of fits into that same category in my mind. Whoop. They want to leave the UK, join the EU instead because they want full political autonomy. Wait a second. Whoa. My opinion on the politics of other countries is if it's funny and doesn't hurt anyone, go for it. Though now that I'm thinking about that, that's kind of my general opinion on things. If it's funny and doesn't hurt anyone, then go for it. Oh, no. I knew that there was going to be something that happened. Oh, and both of them happened. God damn it. I think I might have to fight the other Canadian for first here. Oh, there's two, or well, three, I guess. We're taking over. We're multiplying. Oh! Can I do it? Did I do it? I think I did. Oh, just barely. Okay, good. Ooh. Oh, I missed all of them. The blue shell didn't go for me. It didn't go for me. Let's go. Oh. Okay, let's fix this Elgato now before I forget. Bonk, bonk. There we go. I remain the top Canadian for now. Oh, that was someone with an almost maxed out online stat, huh? I see. Ooh, Sunset Wilds. It's not the max? I thought 9,999 was the max. Can you go higher? Is it 99,000? 999,000? Ooh, oh. Come on, let me play in the mid track. Give me the mid Shy Guy track at Sunset. I see all of the wacky and interesting me's have been weeded out. We're left with the normies now. Wait a minute. Look, on the far right. Brown hair, tall, blue eyes. Hold a second. 99,999 is the max, but the vast majority of people who have that have hacked it. I feel like it would be difficult to even maintain that. As much as you gain a lot, like, you'd have to play a lot of games to reach that. It's not surprising that most of them are hacked. Most online players top out at like 15 to 20k. That makes sense. I mean, once you get to that skill level, like, you're gonna be people who are at the same skill level. It's gonna be hard to win races consistently. You think you were like 13k when you were grinding a bit? That's very impressive. Whoa. You're also ridiculously good at this game, though, and also most games. Honestly, I'm a bit jealous, but at least you're on my side. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. I'm glad everything's a-okay, by the way. I know that was a while ago, but I'm very happy that everything worked out. Yahoo! Of course. Whoa. Okay. Oh my god, how far ahead is the first person? They're very far ahead. Oh no, I'm no longer the best Canadian. I need to catch up, I need to prove my worth. With the maple syrup that flows through my veins, I promise. I will try. Oh. Griff Riff. Okay, looks like they were looking behind them. That's so unfortunate. They had a maple syrup overload. Yeah, I guess their blood sugar got too high. I'm glad I was never like super offended by Canadian jokes, because they are so common between like South Park and all of the like satirical American like late night shows. Oh yeah, I guess I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. But you know, I know that a lot of yeah, that is true. I know a lot of very conservative Canadians do not appreciate the Canada jokes and get very butthurt about them. But I always just thought that they were silly, because it's never anything serious. It was always something like, oh, Canada isn't real, or everyone says sorry all the time. Like, it was never anything serious like Canadians smell bad, or Canadians are all stupid. It was always innocent stuff. But yeah, I guess with the UK it's a bit more vitriolic, isn't it? It's a bit more actually dislike for the country than it is playful, inoffensive jests. Herm. Most countries in Europe hate each other, to be honest. I mean, yeah. Considering the amount of wars that went on over there for like thousands and thousands of years, I guess it's to be expected. Like, never ask a Dane's for a Dane's opinion on his weed. Well, thankfully, I don't know anyone from either of those countries, so that would never be an issue. You know, Canada is still just a baby country. We've only been around for, what, like 150 years or something? We don't have enough time for anyone to hate us, really. We haven't been around long enough. Though, technically, if you consider Leif Erikson, Canada's been around for a couple thousand years. But that's not true. It's actually been around for a couple thousand years because of the people who are already here. You have a lack of neighbors, too? Yeah, we just have one really, really noisy one. But, thankfully, we're on the top floor, so, you know, we don't have to worry about them stomping on our roof or anything. We're too high up for oil, so everything's a-okay. It is very funny, though. Like, prior to becoming a VTuber, I really didn't have any friends outside of, outside of the country. Pretty much all of my, like, everyone that I knew in my life was Canadian, except for, like, maybe a couple of people at, like, my middle school. But, upon going, you know, to the greater realm of the internet, I didn't realize how little people know about Canada. Like, I guess part of me expected that, because most of what people know about Canada is from, like, the jokes and the memes and stuff. But it's always really funny whenever someone is, like, shocked that we have something in Canada. Like, I know when Zosie and I first met, she was like, do you guys have prom in Canada? Do you have, like, these really obvious restaurants in Canada? Do you have this in Canada? I'm like, yes. we believe it or not, we're actually basically just America. But it makes sense. Canada's news is typically relegated to just Canada unless something terrible happens. And honestly, not much terrible happens. You know, not much of anything happens in Canada, to be real with you. We don't have a lot of things you have over there. That is true. I feel like maybe that's more so an American thing, because I feel like Americans don't understand how similar Canada is to America, so that's why it's really funny. But yeah, I guess it makes sense that, like, you know, people from a different continent, of course they have no idea what Canada's like. It's a different continent. Yeah, if you do have anything, it'll be like 1 or 2 stores instead of a nationwide chain. Yeah, like Walmart. Walmarts are everywhere around here, but I don't think there's any Walmarts outside of North America. Or like a Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons are literally, like, every single block has a Tim Hortons in Canada, but you go to another country and it's like maybe 1 per state or like 1 per country even. You have Tesco, which is the same parent company. I believe so. There's always an equivalent, though. Chances are, if it's a First Nation country, even if it might not have the same name, chances are they have the exact same thing as anyone else. Even the weather, at least where I am, like, Canada's not snowy all the time, and I know that there are people who I've met who were genuinely convinced that Canada was just always covered in snow, like 24/7, 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year. And that's really funny, because how would that even happen? Canada extends, like, across most of the northern hemisphere. So, I don't know. Maybe not most of the northern hemisphere, but it takes up a good, like, third of it. Sweet, sweet Kenyan. Ugh. The Canadians are still here. And an Australian, too. Nice. Must have a fair share of cold wasteland. Yeah, the further north you go, the snowier it gets. Canada's split up into, like, provinces and territories. So alongside the, like, bottom border that's connected to America are where all of the provinces are. And then above the provinces, there are 3 territories. Technically, there's more, but one of them is called the Northwest Territories, which comprises, like, hundreds of territories within it. And basically, as soon as you enter a territory, it's gonna be snow for most of it. Like, you might have a little bit of leeway as you're entering the territory, but the majority of the territories are very snowy. But pretty much any Canadian province, like, it's gonna have very comparable weather to America. In fact, some of the Canadian provinces are further south than some of the American states. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm in the crab bucket. I need to leave the... Oh, I'm never leaving the crab bucket. It is much too late for me now. No! Oh, no. Oh, no. What have I done? Oh, my God. Most of Canada is actually forests. The majority of the ground... Wait, that lightning hits behind you too? Oh no. I didn't know that. The majority of Canadian wilderness is forests. We got a lot of like really, really lush greenery. And a lot of kind of like rainforests, but significantly less hot and wet. But like with how lush and green it is, it's like... It kind of looks like a jungle. But then you get to the ocean, and it's like, oh, well, this is definitely not a jungle. Coming for you, Dry Bones. Brennan 1111. Must be very easy to get stranded or lost out there. Well, the thing with Canada is that 99% of the population is all along the American border. So, like, if you go up too far, there's just no one there. The population concentration for Canada is entirely alongside its southern border. In the UK, you can probably just pick a direction and go, and you'll find civilization real quick. Yeah, that makes sense. But also, I feel like people underestimate just how large Canada is. Canada is absolutely massive. On maps, it looks smaller than it is because our Earth is spherical. Newsflash. And as things get closer to the bottom and the top of the planet, they shrink. But Canada is actually like significantly larger than the United States. Like it is really, really big, but it's almost all empty. Let's see if I can pull this up. Canada population density chart. Yeah, I don't know if OBS is gonna let me just drag this in. Where is it? Where did you go? Oh, that's the web page. I don't want that. I want the image. Bonk. Thankfully, it takes long enough for the races to load that I can just put this in here now. Boom, boom, boom. There you go. As you can see here, Canada's population is almost entirely located along its southern border. And as soon as you go north, there's nobody there. One of the I mean, there's many reasons for that. The biggest reason was because during the funding of Canada and America, it was just way more beneficial to have trade routes further south because that's where boats would come from. And also because, you know, people back then did not have heating technology, so you had to stay where it was temperate or else you would just freeze to death and die. And because with Canada, you know, the further north you go, the less habitable it is, whereas with America, the further south you go, technically the more habitable it is. People just didn't really go that far north, and then when settlements got established, they just expanded and grew into cities and then provinces, and then that's how you're left with the population density that we have now. But it's also because we do a ton of trading with America. America is our largest trade partner, and it's way more convenient if all of our trade like doesn't have to go very far in order to get to where it needs to go. So those are the biggest reasons. Another reason is because a lot of the northern land was already owned by the native people who lived here, and unlike our southern neighbors, Canada went through great reparation efforts to actually like give back a lot of the land that colonizers took when Canada was first being established. Granted, you know, they didn't give back the best land, because the native Canadians lived all across the country and also the continent, including in America. There was a lot of shared people between Canada and America. And they were kind of pushed north even after the reparation efforts. I committed a war crime again. But that's another reason why the more northern territories are not populated, is because those are owned by the native people of Canada. Still a part of our government, but we give them semi-autonomous governing for things. They just have to follow the same laws, I think. It's funny, I had no interest in history when I was a kid. I actually kind of despised history class until all it took was one teacher to actually like be likable and present history in a fun and interesting way. And then I went on a binge, learning as much history about the world as I could. There's always more to learn because there are so many countries out there with super deep and rich histories. But in terms of yeah, I did know that, and I mean, I understand why, but also I feel like they probably should. But that's not for me to decide. That's not for me to decide. But yeah, that actually reminds me of something really interesting. I think the reason why I was so interested in like history is because that's kind of a thing in America too, where when Americans are taught history, they're taught the American perspective. So like one funny example that I always use is that in America, the Americans are taught that they won, or not that they won, but that the War of 1812 was a tie. Which, if you don't know what the War of 1812 is, that was I want to say a fairly petty war between America and Canada that happened in 1812, where America wanted to take a bunch of land from Canada. And they came in extremely woefully unprepared and got absolutely stomped by the Canadian military. But in America, they're taught that it was a tie and that it was a mutual agreement to end the war. Whereas in Canada, it's taught the unbiased reality of, no, America just wasn't prepared and quite literally could not win the war because they didn't have enough people. But learning about all those oddities of, like, you know, in the UK, they don't teach a lot about you know, UK history, or like in America they teach very one-sided egotistical history. Like, all of that stuff got me really interested in, like, well, what actually happened? Like, there are so many of these stories, but like, how do I know how many of them are true or told in an unbiased perspective. And I think it was probably around like my second last year of high school that I started actually like investigating into a bunch of things and like seeing for myself world events and world history through an unbiased perspective. And I think that's where my interest in history stemmed from. But unfortunately, all of my knowledge on stuff is very surface level because I probably have some kind of undiagnosed ADHD, and it's very hard for me to stay interested in things for a long time. So I end up hyperfixating on like one or two things for like a month, and then I move on to the next thing. And I did that with history, where I'd be like, oh, this country's really interesting. I want to learn the history about this place. And then I would get like a brief overview, and then I'd be like, okay, that's enough. And then we'd move on to the next one. So I don't have an in-depth working knowledge of all this stuff, but I do find it incredibly interesting. Come on, yes! Can I hit that person? I don't think I did. Oh, man. No! They're passing me again because I got mushrooms. This is so sad. No! Maya, you bitch. Why? Oh, man. Okay, I guess that's payback for committing the war crime on Big Blue. I feel like, yeah, I got Mario Karted. I feel like, I might also be a bit biased, but I feel like Canada's pretty good about teaching the bad stuff about our history. Like, when I was in high school, they never shied away from, like, the darker parts of our past. You know, they talked about residential schools, they talked about, you know, the massacres of the natives and, like, all the stuff that happened with that, and I guess I appreciate that, because I feel like, you know, there's this tendency for people to naturally become more nationalistic as they get older, for a variety of reasons. But instilling at a young age that a country is not perfect and has made mistakes, I think helps to mitigate that a little bit. Because I do know some nationalistic Canadians, but I don't really know a whole lot. I feel like we're kind of chill. You know, we're very aware of the problems that our country has, which all countries have their own problems that I'm sure they either are unwilling to or already know about. But I feel like Canada's just kind of chill. Generally chill. Temperature-wise as well. Kind of missing the wacky me's now. Everyone here just kind of looks cute. UK is the opposite direction of that. Oh boy. Yeah, it sure is. I feel like sports culture, what a country's sports culture is a pretty good reflection of their political culture. No shortage of groups trying to self-flagellate for the past. Yeah. Like if you look at countries that are really care about their sports teams and really care about their team winning, those are not always, but those are also typically countries that are very nationalistic. And I'm not gonna say if that's a good thing or a bad thing. That's not my position to take. But I burnt out? Excuse me? I've been playing this game for 7 years. Excuse me? But, you know, it's just one of those things. When's the last time, you know, you heard Canadians like really being mad about a team losing? Obviously, whenever the Leafs don't win, there's a lot of upset Canadians, but it's never a violent upset. It's always like a, oh man, now I'm sad kind of upset. Which I also feel is a very Canadian thing. We don't get mad, we just start self-deprecating. Like, a lot of people blame the Atlantic slave trade, but never give credit for the fact that we ended it and made it practically illegal worldwide. That's true. Ooh. Wonk. that raises another conversation that maybe is not one I'm gonna go on to on stream. I gotta stop looking at chat. I'll leave it vague with my thought on that, which is that I feel like it relates to the whole people not really knowing anything about Canada aspect, but unfortunately a lot of the criticisms that get thrown towards our downstairs neighbors also get thrown towards Canada, when a lot of the things that happened in America were either not present in Canada or were actively fought against in Canada. Of course there was some participation in things in Canada. Definitely not to say that we are exempt from any blame, but there's I feel like sometimes there's this this general misunderstanding that Canada and America share a very extensive history and are responsible for the same things that happened in America's past. Well, and that's just not really true. Yeah, we're definitely... It's funny, we're grouped together when it's something negative, but then we're not grouped together when it's something positive. Like if something cool happens in North America, it's because of the USA. But if something bad happens in North America, it's because of everybody. Oh, politics. Interesting international politics. It's fine, though. I'm just here to have a good time, you know? If anyone has any opinions on Canada, that's A-okay. Oh, gotta do a stretch. Ugh. Oh, I was starting to shrimp out. All right. Well, I'm kind of hoping that it's not Mount Wario again. As much as I love Mount Wario, I'm kind of looking... No, or Hyrule... We just did Hyrule Circuit. Oh, it's okay. Maybe I can get some... Maybe I can get some redemption. Still got 3 Canadians, but they're different ones now. We've been cycled out. Wait, I would have burned out. I realized it's because my sound is very slightly delayed, and I was going based off of the visual instead of the sound. Maintaining a quota of Canadians, exactly. There's always got to be one of us. It is on stream too? Okay, I can fix that again. I really wish that there was a way to not have that happen. Unfortunately, that's a hardware issue. I might have better luck if I didn't use OBS and use like Streamlabs or XSplit, but unfortunately I enjoy having an easy time when streaming, so I like using OBS. What capture card do I have? I have an Elgato HD60, not 60S I don't think, just an HD60. But I know that Zosie has the 60S and she has the exact same problem, where it just slowly becomes desynced the longer you play. It's not hugely noticeable usually, but every now and then it becomes a problem. I did notice it did not happen on Wii U games. It only happens on Switch games, and I wonder if that's something that has to do with the dock for the Switch. That's my only guess, because when I was playing Mario Galaxy 2, that was not an issue. I feel like that's a, yep, that's a good time to do the ghost. Three red shells. A bit excessive, but also Daisy is halfway across the track, so maybe that's just what I needed. You have the S Plus and you don't seem to have that issue? I really wish that I didn't, but c'est la vie, I have to deal with it. Ooh, Daisy's got some connection issues. Herm. Are you in first place? I mean, they're just as ahead as if it was you. Wow, this is such an effective blooper. I totally can't see anything in front of me. Why did I drift that way? What happened there? I hope my actual controller drift isn't back. I don't think that's the case, though. I have up and down controller drift. Left and right shouldn't be a thing. Blooped on the controls instead? I know! Alright, boo! See, I don't think I have drift. It's a little hard to tell when there's no menus. I'll just give my sticks a couple flicks anyways. Alright, I think I'm gonna do probably 3 more races, and then I'll call it a stream. Let's see. Oh, right. I was like, well, what is this weird thing that's been in the corner of my eye this whole time? It's the Canadian population density. I was like, why is the world map on fire? I still want to do that tilt control Mario Kart stream. I want to invite as many people as I can, and then just play with tilt controls the entire time. Because they're awful. I don't like tilt controls in this game. They're fine in Wii because it uses the IR sensor, but in this game... Oh, Bread's using tilt controls. But in this game, with the gyroscope, it just gets worse and worse. Yeah, it's really not good. But it could be fun for like a good, you know, half hour to hour long stream. I think there's a way to set motion controls only in the tournament rules. I'm not sure. Maybe it's only vehicles. We'd have to be on the honor system. You don't understand how people use the gyro controls in Splatoon? I actually don't mind gyro controls at all with aiming. I use the gyro controls on Splatoon 1. That was the gamepad, which does use IR. But the couple of times that I've played Splatoon 2 with friends, I use them and they seemed pretty good. It does have the problem of getting desynced really easily though, which is a problem. Even on like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, like I love the gyro aiming on those games, but I feel like you really have to use both. Like I would never exclusively use gyro aim. It's just not the same. It's really not the same. And I know that they tried their best, and you know, for the most part, the gyro is pretty serviceable, but it really doesn't take much. Like, if you shake your controller wrong, it can completely throw off all of your gyro. I wouldn't mind if they're... I don't know how they would do it with the next console. It's probably just going to be Joy-Cons again. But I wouldn't mind having like an IR bar of some kind. It is a bit of a pain in the ass to set up the IR bar, and especially since for, you know, the most effective use, you have to be sitting fairly far away from your television. But it works. It works very well. And, you know, if that was an option, like something that you could just plug into the dock and like the USB port or something, I think that would be pretty cool. I guess it's not really a big thing though. Switch games aren't particularly built around motion controls anymore. It's usually just a bonus thing. Oh. I'm surprised we never got funky Joy-Cons though. I remember when the Switch was first like announced, there was all these like mock-ups for games that use specific types of Joy-Cons, and I never really thought that was gonna happen because it makes no sense to also sell a new controller with every game that you put out. But I'm just surprised that we never got any weird and wacky Joy-Cons. Like, other than a couple of like third-party ones that had like conventional controller grips, we really just had the one kind of Joy-Con. It was never like, you know, there was never anything with a knob or like an extra button or any like sideways when plugged in Joy-Cons. Miss having cool alternative controllers. I do to an extent too. I really liked all of the like accessories that the Wii came with, like the Wii Wheel and the Zapper. But that's, yeah, it's a bit different from something like Guitar Hero, exactly. I think Guitar Hero needs another controller. Like, it needs a guitar. It's really hard to play Guitar Hero with a regular controller. I do miss it to an extent. I'm glad that you don't have to spend like $300 on like a drum kit for a video game anymore. But yeah, that one was kind of crazy. I guess all of the best players got cycled out. But it would be nice for something a little bit different. Like that like fishing rod Joy-Con that someone mocked up. That one would be really cool. We never really got a proper fishing game on Switch. I'm sure there's like, I don't know, Pro Bass Fishing, Pro Ultra, Pro Plus or whatever. But in terms of like a real fishing game, we never really got any. And I feel like, you know, just put a little what was that called? A reel, I guess. Just put a reel in it, and there you go. Or like a sword. We never got any sword attachments for the Joy-Con. When Switch Sports came out, I was genuinely surprised that there was no like little batons that you could use. Imagine actually facing your friend and like, well, I guess at that point you're kind of just sword fighting in real life. Maybe that would be a little bit too much. Honestly, you could do the same thing with fake lightsabers. Imagine standing a safe distance away from your friend and you're both swinging fake swords at each other, and the swings that you do in real life translate to the game. That would be pretty cool, I think. It's cool that the Guitar Hero controllers work on like Fortnite Festival though, because I feel like the Guitar Hero franchise is unfortunately dead. But at least there's that, and at least it works. They did not have to make it work. I actually found some of our old Wii games. My sister has our Wii, which she doesn't play, and I do want it back, but she lives in another country, so unfortunately it's not exactly easy to get those. But I thought she brought all of the old Wii games, other than the ones that I kept in my room, but I actually found like a Guitar Hero and Band Hero, and I have them. I don't have any of the controllers for them, but I got them. I think it's Guitar Hero 5, a Guitar Hero World Tour, and then Band Hero, and I think at one point we had Lego Rock Band, but I'm not sure what happened to that one. That one was not very good. But I guess I mean I'm sure controllers are not very expensive for the Wii version, so it probably wouldn't take very much for me to get one if I wanted to. Band Hero was great. You always got shafted and had to be in vocals. I was a choir kid when I was young, so I never minded being on vocals, but I didn't know any of the songs because I was like 10. I really liked the drums on Band Hero. I still like the drums. I never learned how to play like an instrument, but I feel like if I was to ever go back and actually learn, it would either be the piano or the drums. I think I really like having proper, like, nice and soft hands. So something like the guitar isn't really for me, because you kind of have to have calluses on your hands to do that. And I already get calluses from being a gamer, so, you know. And something like a woodwind instrument or a brass instrument, I am just not really a fan of playing them. Like, I like how they sound, but I don't find it very fun to play those kinds of instruments. I'd rather use my air to sing instead of to play an instrument. So that does really only leave like the other kinds of strings, or a piano, or a drum. And other than drums being really loud, I feel like they'd be really fun. I'm also good at polyrhythms too. So who knows? If I ever have the opportunity to actually learn, maybe I will. The piano seems like fun though, and the piano's not too hard to learn. It's certainly not on the easier side of instruments, but it's kind of middling in terms of difficulty. Once you learn how to do it, it doesn't have a lot of variability to it. Stuff with like woodwinds and brass instruments, even if you know how to play the instrument, you could just have an off day and the instrument can just sound bad. As long as a piano is tuned well, it's usually gonna play the exact note that you want it to play, as long as you can hit the note. So I like the lack of variability in it. Won by like 30 seconds, I know. I mean, it's a good thing that this is my last race, because I've kind of beat the competition now. Waluigi's genie horn. Smurfing, I know. I mean, I guess I literally, because I never play online Mario Kart, I kind of am smurfing. I'm at like a significantly higher skill level than... Oh, okay. I was wondering why we were still here. I'm at a significantly higher skill level than what my score would insinuate, so I guess I am. But let's see here. The stream has given me more interesting ideas for things that I can do in the future. I'm intrigued. Now I'm thinking about a Guitar Hero stream, and I'm thinking about what was the other? The Dragon Ball card game. I'm thinking. They call me the thinker because I only ever have ideas and don't actually execute them. But let's see. Do we want to raid somebody today? I don't know. There's not really enough people for a raid, but I can see who's streaming. If ASO's still streaming, maybe we'll give her a raid. Band Hero VTuber collab would be sick. I think it would be. I would have to get the instruments though. I don't know. Does that have online multiplayer? Let's see. Does Band Hero Wii have online multiplayer? When your mates can't come out to play, they can stay in to play. Up to 8 players can take on the challenges via Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. That's right. I forgot that there is no Nintendo Wi-Fi connection anymore. I'm sure we could figure something out. There's always a funny little program that has a particular type of porpoise as its mascot. For now, stay safe, have fun, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!